1.
Welcome to LMC Media Community Conversation with our local officials. Joining us this evening are Town of Mamaroneck Supervisor Nancy Seligson, Village of Mamaroneck Mayor Tom Murphy, and Village of Larchmont Mayor Lorraine Walsh. Thank you all for being here. I'm Maura Carlin. Let's start with updates, and I'll do it in reverse order and start with you, Lorraine, for the Village of Larchmont.
Okay. In the village, the one change this week is that we are planning to open up the tennis courts at Flint Park. The governor put out another order this week, or allowed for the opening of tennis courts with certain rules. So we have 6 courts. We're going to open 3 of them, and it's for singles play only. And those are the rules. No seating, no benches, no chairs, no spectators on the courts.
Are permits required? Are permits still required?
No, just go play. At this point, just go play.
Okay. Nancy?
We have a similar announcement for the town. We are going to open the tennis courts at Memorial Park. There's 4 courts. One is kind of isolated on its own, so that'll be open. There's 3 courts that are together. We're going to open 2 of those 3 courts. The middle court will remain empty, so there's social distancing. Excuse me, allergies. We're excited to offer tennis to folks. You won't need a permit for this to play either. Again, it is just singles, no congregating. The bathroom will not be open, no seating, no benches. But I think it is a great opportunity for people to get out and play, which is great.
Is there any staffing and sign up, or are we on our own?
We actually do have an attendant who will be at the Memorial Park tennis courts, who will be monitoring the situation and letting us know how it's working.
Okay. The Hommocks pool's remaining closed, right?
That's true. The Hommocks pool is it's a funny beast because it's owned by the school district, but the town of Mamaroneck is the largest user of the pool. And usually at this time of year, we're talking about opening it up to the public for swimming. And pools, though, are governed by the Department of Health. And the Department of Health is a county entity. So we do not get to decide whether the pool opens or not. It will be decided by the Department of Health. We have been talking about the possibility of actually having people make reservations to use the pool, so that you would have could control the number of people there and have just a limited number using the pool at once. We're trying to get creative in ways that we can still bring people together, but in very limited numbers, and accomplish social distancing at the same time.
And your May 15th outdoor movie isn't going to happen at that date.
It is not. We are all, though, talking about trying to figure out how to do a drive-in movie for our community.
Wouldn't that be fun?
That
It would
sounds
be really
exciting.
fun. It's a great idea. We're talking to companies that do this. We're talking with the Village of Mamaroneck about whether we should rent it or buy it, and with the Village of where can we do it. And it's interesting. We've not done it before, but I think it would be a great opportunity for all of us.
And I'm just one more thing. Last week, county taxes were due. Do you have any idea the percentage that did pay in the town?
Yes, I do. We got 90% paid.
That's, wow.
Yeah, we usually have about 99% paid, and that is after a few months. So this was a very good receipt of taxes. It makes the county very happy because the town is obligated to provide 60% of that to the county by May 25th. And there was a lot of concern among several municipalities as to whether they'd be able to hit that mark. But we told them this week that we can, and they were very happy about that. So thank you to everyone who paid their taxes.
Hey, Tom, what's going on in the Village of Mamaroneck?
A couple of announcements. Unfortunately, pardon me, the Firemen's Parade and the Firemen's Carnival have been canceled. The fire department, after consulting with the village board, I think definitely made a wise decision. I don't see that there was any way to really socially distance at either the carnival or at the parade. So, we will have a better parade next year, bigger and better. The fireworks are delayed too. If anybody's ever been in the fireworks at Harbor Island Park on July 4th, you're literally shoulder to shoulder with everybody. So, this is just going to be a different year. We had a very successful food giveaway on Tuesday behind Mamaroneck Avenue School, which is where it's going to be in the future from now on, behind Mamaroneck Avenue School. Every time we do it, the process becomes more refined and more efficient. Unfortunately, though, every time we do it, the need becomes greater because unemployment is growing every day. And, as this takes hold and sets in, we're all going to have to work really hard to keep this community fed. Because it's pretty obvious we're not going to get a hell of a lot of help from the federal government.
So if you want to give out the website or
well, if you go to if you go to Larchmont Mamaroneck Hunger Task Force, if you just Google that, there is a page that'll describe when the food giveaway is happening, and there's a more important page. There's a contribute page. So for those folks who are looking to help, I know a lot of folks have helped already. A lot of folks are always asking me what they can do. They take in volunteers from time to time. You have to be trained, but they really need help. They really need money. So if you have any disposable income, this is the time where, maybe everybody can't eat steak, but we could all eat hamburger, and everybody eats. So it's really important that we keep all our families fed. And that's what we're concentrating right now in the Village of Mamaroneck. And just, the parks, the recreation staff and the village manager are working on ways to use the Harbor Island Park for passive recreation. We're reaching out to some of the clubs, some of the yoga teachers and studios in the neighborhood to try and tell them that, if they do it socially distant, we'll let them use the park so that people can have some outdoor recreation and, get out of the house and get a little normalcy and maybe get a little business back to some of these yoga teachers and, fitness teachers.
Okay. Now, I want to remind everyone who's watching that you can email in your questions to lmctv@lmctv.org. I think our executive director, Matt Sullivan's on with us.
Hi, Maura. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. Yes, we have our first question of the evening. The question comes from a viewer. The CDC guidelines for reopening rely on the decline of daily hospitalization and fatality rates as a proportion to the local population. However, the public is only provided with local confirmed test results. Can you please provide the hospitalization and fatality rates to the public, as well as your analysis pursuant to CDC guidelines on a regular basis?
Well, part of the problem is that we do not get fatality rates. We do not get hospitalization rates. What we get as the chief elected officials is the raw data. The raw data is just the people who have tested positive for COVID. It doesn't say if they're recovered. It doesn't say if, God forbid, they're fatality. So that really isn't a function of what we do here. That the data that person is looking for is something that's going to have to come from the state and from the county health departments. We're little municipalities here. My budget's 37 million. Nancy's is a little less, and Lorraine's a little less than that. We don't have health departments. We don't have people who can tabulate this data because we don't get the data.
I think it's
we don't have hospitals here either, so we can't do the hospitalization rate. I'm sorry, Lorraine.
Yeah, I just want to pipe in and say I think it's important for people to understand, and maybe this is where that person's question is leading. When we start to reopen and follow those criteria for the ability to reopen, it is not going to be on a town by town, village by village basis. So it's somewhat irrelevant what those numbers are locally. At best, it'll be at the county level. And right now, Westchester County is lumped in as a suburb of New York City with New York City, Suffolk, and Nassau County.
See, it's not now. They told us I thought they said the other day that the region we're in is the
map he used in his presentation was the economic development regions, which
Right.
Westchester is in mid-Hudson. But if you read the explanations and I went and looked into this a little bit further today, the text says that it's New York City and its suburbs, its surrounding suburbs. And I feel pretty sure that Westchester might be included in that.
Let me take you back for just a second.
Even if it's not and it's included in the mid-Hudson region,
right.
It's a much broader picture than at the local level.
Are these state briefings that you receive? And is this leading to, like, you're concerned about if we're lumped in with New York City, how we're going to reopen or when?
Well,
It would be when, I think,
Yeah.
that it would be much later and probably even slower. But consider that at least in southern Westchester, many of our people work in New York City. The interaction is so frequent that it makes some sense that we would be tied to them and pretty
So
closely.
I was surprised though, because yesterday in the call with the county, they said that we were with Rockland, Dutchess, Putnam, Orange, and Ulster counties. I had thought that we would be lumped with, the city and Nassau and Suffolk.
My impression of that call is that there was some confusion on that point because the map that was used in the governor's press conference showed the economic development regions. But if you even look at the fact that the task force for reopening has Mayor de Blasio, County Executive Latimer, and the county executives for Nassau and Suffolk working together, says to me that Westchester is considered a suburban neighborhood of New York City.
And at the end of the day, we don't call the shots.
Right. And
No.
but the other thing is we do get the numbers for Westchester County.
Right. And they're
So
on the state website as well. The New York
Right,
State
so you can go
website
and
has
get
all those numbers on it.
Right, the hospitalizations, the fatalities, and the numbers of how many cumulative cases there have been.
And how many have been tested.
Right, and testing. So we all know that no matter what we do, and we of course are most interested in our communities, and we're thankful that numbers are improving in both Westchester County and the New York metropolitan region, we are still going to be bound by the criteria as a regional area. And so we are not, even if we meet the criteria individually as municipalities, it's not going to matter in terms of the opening up. It's going to have to be within a region.
Right, depending how our region is defined.
Right.
So if it were defined as just Westchester, does that make it easier to reopen based on what you know?
Easier than New York City.
But it
there's
hasn't been a
7,
walk in the park here either, though. We've had a high infection rate.
so there's 7 criteria for opening, and right now Westchester County meets 3 of those. And some of the others are very, very difficult to meet. And it's not likely that it could happen soon.
We have another question that came in from a viewer. I'm over 60, but I'd like to help with the food drive. Is there anything I can volunteer for, maybe from home?
Once again, I would refer him to the Larchmont Mamaroneck Hunger Task Force website, and they have a link for folks who want to help out. And they might be, there's giving away the food at Mamaroneck Avenue School, but there's also packing the food, and they're doing that mostly at St. John's Church. So there might be a way. I don't know. You'll need to talk to them, but that might be a way to help.
Thank you.
So talked about the difficulty in reopening everything, but people are getting sort of restless And I've been hearing more and more, how long is this going to continue, even from people who have been dedicated to staying home. And after seeing the governor or hearing the governor speak about they did a 3-day testing of how people were, which people were getting it, and they were people who had been staying at home. You're hearing more and more people questioning why we're doing this. And, can you speak to that at all?
Why we're staying home? So we don't die.
But
Okay, no, that's it. I mean, if you don't want to stay home, you're going to die. I have no patience with this. I really don't. This is the only tool we have, the social distancing. Yes, it's hard. Yes, we're all getting antsy. Yes, people want to go out. What's the alternative? We all get, if we hadn't socially distanced, there'd be millions of people dead. So it's hard when you hear that. Yeah, I understand. I want to go out too. I'm getting a little frustrated, but what we're doing is protecting the largest society. So we're all giving up a little comfort and a little, freedom to make everybody else safer. This is like about the greater good. We could find ways to keep ourselves better amused, perhaps. But this whole idea of, we're going to open up society because we're all just getting sick of staying home, we can't be that immature. I hope.
But if the people who are staying home are the ones who are getting it, there's a question about staying home. It raises the question of whether staying home is helping.
I think, I'm not sure that it raises that question, although I can see how people would, in their frustration with this situation, interpret it that way. Clearly, we saw a meteoric rise in infection, hospitalization, and death. And the change in our behavior to stay home and separate ourselves obviously slowed down that rate of infection, which affected hospitalizations and deaths. And that's where we are right now. But not everybody, and I would say actually very few people have not gone out of their house. At the strictest, I know some people who maybe only went to the supermarket and very infrequently, but the majority of people have gone occasionally to stores and have gone out and walked around and have gone into parks and maybe have stopped to talk to someone. So there's always been a little bit of interaction. It's hard to I think we're not living in a vacuum, and this is not a controlled science experiment. So just because there has been this observation made, it might be interesting and it might lead to some further information, but I don't know that we can interpret that to mean staying home, you're at just as great a risk as if you're out in a theater. Right?
My rule of thumb is, I wait for Dr. Fauci to say something. And Fauci says it, I said, okay, now I believe it. But, there's always anecdotal,
Right.
stories, and you can't chase them constantly.
And our
But
job,
to the point, go ahead, Nancy.
I feel like our job is to help our community realize that we need to help each other. And we protect our neighbors, protect our families, and we want to encourage folks to wear a mask at all times when they're out in public. And, unless you're alone,
Just like that.
Lorraine, unless you're alone on a trail or a road, you really should be wearing a mask. And that's what we're asking of people. And that's what we're hoping people will recognize has helped all of us in confirmed cases and certainly stem the fatalities.
So Nancy, the governor's order actually says that people should wear some kind of nose and mouth covering when they're in a public place and unable to maintain, or when they're not maintaining social distance. There's a lot of debate in local social media about whether, if you're walking down the street alone and there's nobody anywhere near you, whether you need to be wearing the mask, or whether you're biking or running all by yourself and there's not a person around. What are your thoughts and what do you advise? Anyone?
You have to have that mask with you.
You have
and-
to have it with you, right? So
Yes.
look, not only it has the added benefit of hiding the double chin that I got from staying home and eating too much during this crisis, but keep it like this. It's, you know, it's not fashionable, but it's no big deal. Walk down the street, you bump into somebody, somebody's coming, you see they're going to be close, you just pop it up, pop it back down.
Yeah.
It didn't hurt me. Maybe it helped them. I'm asymptomatic, but I haven't been tested. I don't know if I have the virus. The person I pass on the sidewalk looks perfectly healthy, but they don't know they might have the virus. So we're protecting each other, right? We are loving our neighbors as ourselves. That's what this is all about. Not only that, we're talking about people getting anxious and frustrated and wanting to get out and reopen. And the fact that because we're in Westchester, we're very close or part of the biggest epicenter in the country. It's going to be a slow process and our timeline is going to be longer. One of the ways for us to make sure that as we do start to reopen, we get to stay open is by getting used to wearing masks. Because if you're going to start going into more shops and being out around people, you're going to have this on. It's not always going to be the case that I can walk down the sidewalk and there's nobody within 20 feet of me. As soon as we start to reopen businesses, there are going to be more people around and you're going to have to wear a mask all the time.
I'm going to turn it over to Matt because he actually has questions for you from our audience. Matt?
You're
You're
on.
muted, Matt. You're muted.
He may be muted for the moment.
There is certainly a lot of concern about the food drive. We have another question that came in from a viewer. Do you know when the next food drive giveaway will be in Mamaroneck?
They will be every Tuesday at 2 p.m. behind Mamaroneck Avenue School in the parking lot.
Great. Thank you. Another question comes in from a viewer. I received an absentee ballot for the presidential election. Will I get a ballot for the state and local primary?
I don't know.
Did they receive an absentee ballot for the presidential primary?
That is the question. I received, quote, the question is, quote, I received an absentee ballot for the presidential election. Will I get a ballot for state and local primaries?
So the Board of Elections is supposed to be sending absentee ballot applications to every registered voter, whether they're active or inactive. And then you complete that application, you either mail it or email it back to the Board of Elections, and they'll send you the actual absentee ballot. But you can also go on the Westchester County Board of Elections website and you can download it, fill it in and email it back. The absentee ballot application, you can fill it out, email it back, and then you'll get your absentee ballot in the mail. And that's what I've done because I didn't want to wait for them to send it. And I don't always trust mail delivery to be timely.
And Lorraine, the Village of Larchmont elections were put off again.
I was just going to say, you brought up elections. So they finally set a date for village elections. That's going to be September 15th. Now, as it stands today, that will be a regular old-fashioned election. There is no provision for mail-in votes. There's no provision for exceptions to the requirements for absentee ballots. So, but hopefully by September 15th, that there's no issue with us holding a regular election. We'll see how it goes, but September 15th for village elections.
As you can see, people keep asking how they can help. So beyond the food pantry and the hunger task force, are there other initiatives people should know about, perhaps new ones, to help locals or local businesses?
Yeah, so in Larchmont, what we have is a website. It's One Larchmont, ONE Larchmont.org. And you can go on to that website. One Larchmont happens to be a 501c3 that was started up by some residents in the last year, late last year, to help local businesses. Not with this in mind, but in another fashion. So they are raising funds. You can go on the website and you can donate. In 4 days that it's been open, they've raised over $90,000. And then they will be giving out grants to local businesses in Larchmont to try to, cushion the blow. So it's onelarchmont.org.
Which is
Now, there
different
was
than
also-
1LM.
So it's very different. So, yeah, unfortunately, it just happened to be that this one Larchmont already existed, but there was also, in conjunction with the chamber, a site that was started, which was called 1LM.org. And that was a website that just listed contacts and operational information for all of the businesses in Larchmont and in Mamaroneck as well. That site has been switched over to lovelarchmont.org. And some of the OCRA students from the high school are now helping to update it and get more businesses on the site. So
Okay.
these are separate initiatives, but I really urge everybody to, if they are able, to donate to onelarchmont.org.
There are also opportunities to help individuals, seniors. There's lots of information on our websites now of the villages and the town, how you can work with organizations that are trying to help seniors, to shop for them, deliver food for them, run errands for them. And there's a lot of information there. So the websites of all of us contain information on volunteer opportunities. And of course, the county does too.
And this is your chance to make a pitch for the filling out the census and
Oh, yeah.
how your competition's going.
I think I'm winning,
I
right?
think Nancy's winning. Uh-oh.
Where are you?
I was in the dunk tank a few years ago. I don't want to be back in it. I think at Larchmont's at 62%. So we've gone up about 7% since we started this conversation.
Tom,
Great.
where are you?
Last I saw, we were at 63.9, so we're very close.
We are late sprinters, the Village of Mamaroneck. Pace ourselves.
You better hope.
Yeah. So anyone out there who still hasn't completed the census, you don't have to wait for the postcard. You don't have to do it through the mail. You can go online. It's 2020census.gov. And it's so important.
It's going to determine our representation in the Congress and the state for the next 10 years. And most importantly, it determines the aid that we get, the funding aid that we get from the federal government, and this distribution of the sales tax, and goes on and on. So it really is important, and it's for 10 years.
Any other final comments or thoughts you'd like to share?
No, just I hope everybody stays healthy, and please do whatever you can to help out by wearing a mask or giving donations to those in need.
And just for viewers, next week we will be joined by State Senator Shelley Mayer, who represents our area, and you'll be able to ask all the questions you have about what's going on at the state level and how it all affects us. Thank you all for joining us tonight, and a special thanks to Lorraine Walsh, Tom Murphy, and Nancy Seligson. Stay safe and have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you,
Thank
Mara.
you. Good night.
Right.
Good night.